What is going on, everybody? It is time for Lineman Life Live. What is up, everyone? It's Saturday. Normally, wouldn't be doing a live stream on this channel, at least. I'd be doing some type of gaming stream on my AthGeek channel. But you know, it's been a pretty special week in sports news, and a lot of that is contributed to the situation with Kwame Brown and the NBA / ESPN media. And he has been scorching earth, and he has been collecting W's left and right in regards to just kind of standing up and speaking the truth about the situation as it pertains to his career and how a lot of these different people have gotten out of pocket talking about his life, talking about his life as an athlete, talking about you know, things that don't concern them. And he is rightfully so demolished all of them, not the majority. He is 4 for 4. He is shooting 100% right now. And in that, he has built a platform for himself that, I mean, far exceeds anything that I've seen as far as the quick, the how fast people have embraced his message. And he has really reinvigorated his entire image amongst the population, amongst the masses, because now we're hearing from him instead of hearing from the talking heads and people who, you know, for all intents and purposes, do not, you know, or have built their careers in part off of his name. And he has, you know, justly so, put a lot of those people, again, a lot, he put all of them in their place. And, you know, as a former professional athlete myself, there's a lot that I can relate to in what Kwame Brown has been saying, because as athletes, we see it all the time. And there is a level of conditioning in how we are trained to handle the media that kind of holds us back from actually going and speaking and setting the record straight right then and there during our careers. It's not something that is looked upon in a very gracious way, because it brings a distraction to that team. It brings a distraction to the environment, and that is counterproductive to the team sport process in many ways. But for the individual, being able to step up and set the record straight for a lot of these people who don't understand the dynamics behind the scenes, that is vastly important too. That's vastly important to holding on to your dignity, to actually expressing the fact that a lot of these people don't understand the kind of work that you do put in for your craft. And, you know, they're doing a lot of things for the purposes of entertainment, which they don't always realize can be damaging to a player, both in their career and after their career. Now, Kwame's just fine. He's been doing his thing. And, you know, for them not bringing up his name the way they did, we probably wouldn't have had this kind of situation play out as it has. But I've always believed that there is no better confirmation, there's no better validation of a player and what they stand for and what they speak about than to have your peers reiterate your stance. And that's why I decided to do this stream today instead of waiting until Monday, because I came across a video that actually does truly validate a lot of what Kwame Brown has been saying. And who better to speak on this, who better to speak about him and speak about his situation than his teammates. I came across this video last night and I watched only a small bit of it. It's an hour long, but I decided, let me hold on to this and let me react to this. And originally I was going to wait until Monday for the regularly scheduled live stream, but I decided, let's go ahead and do this today. I got a little time before I have other engagements that I have to pay attention to. So I'm going to go through this and I'm going to react to about the first good bit of this discussion by Kwame Brown's old teammates. Washington Wizards Jahadi White, Chris Whitney, Tyrone Nesby. They spoke with Eaton Thomas. These are all teammates who were with the Washington Wizards during the time that Kwame Brown and Michael Jordan were with the team. Doug Collins with the team. And it's a true peek behind the veil. It's truly a peek behind the veil. This is as real as it will get for people who have never been in, obviously, the professional sports arena, who haven't been, athletes themselves. This is real shit, for lack of a better word. This is real things that these guys are talking about that I really do believe, it's something that we all should take a look at. And it's definitely something that really does just bolster everything that Kwame's been saying. So let's jump into it. Let's take a look at this video. Let me pull it up here. So we'll start this off. It's about a minute into it. Like I said, I watched a little bit of it and decided that I would hold off and I would wait and react to it live for you guys so we can discuss. Again, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe if this is your first time coming in to see the observant lineman Uche Nwaneri. And let's talk about it. Obviously, super chats will be prioritized, but I will be keeping an eye on the chat and seeing how you guys are communicating, and then we can go deeper as we go through this video and listen to what these guys have to say. So I'm going to let this run for a second, and then when I think it's pertinent, I will stop it and kind of give you guys my perspective. So here we go.
I was going to stay out of the whole thing. Wasn't going to comment on it. Wasn't going to say anything. Just kind of watch from the sidelines like everybody else. And then Kwame mentioned my name in one of the videos. I don't know if y'all saw, and he was talking about how his experience in Washington D.C. and experience with the Wizards. And it's interesting because after he said that, and he said, "You can ask Tom; he'll tell you." And sure enough, my phone was ringing off the hook with people trying to verify what he was saying. And it's interesting because a lot of people, even now, they don't know everything that was going on in the atmosphere. You know what I mean? They just look at Kwame, they say, oh, he didn't pan out, number one pick, call him a bust, everything like that. And I would always be like, well, there's a whole lot more to this story than that. Like, y'all are missing a whole lot of parts. So I said, okay, well, why don't I just invite some guys that were there, that were on the Wizards, and we all talk about it. You know what I mean? And all kind of paint the correct picture of what was going on during our days in DC. Because it was a difficult situation. I'm gonna be honest with you. Jahai, let me start with you, because what was your assessment of everything, first of all? When MJ came out of retirement, just the whole scene.
And just to stop right there real quick, I think this is a perfect setup for exactly where eyes should be looking when it comes to talking about this situation as a whole. Michael Jordan was coming out of retirement. He was signed with the Washington Wizards. Michael Jordan was effectively a player coach. And, the media really jumped on this situation and talked about, I remember when this happened. I remember this. The media really talked about this as like some innovative, like truly groundbreaking, move that Jordan was making, coming back to the game, but also, he was looked at as the medicine that the doctor ordered for this Washington Wizards franchise that would elevate the franchise to new heights. And as you know, we all know, history has shown that didn't work out the way that they had hoped. But even more revealing about this entire situation is that we got to truly see what Jordan was like when it was when you peeled a few layers back. And with the Wizards not really panning out to really move forward as a franchise, even with Michael Jordan there, a lot of people were scratching their heads, but a lot of the pundits, a lot of the talking heads, protected Michael Jordan. They protected him from receiving any blame in regards to how the Wizards turned out under really what was mainly his leadership. So these guys are going to get into really the crux of everything. And I think, as much as we adore Michael Jordan, as much as he is looked at as an icon, the old saying goes, never meet your heroes. Never meet your heroes, because it's not always as rosy a picture as you're led to believe by people who control narratives. And the narrative around his situation with the Wizards has been carefully molded, both during the time when he was there and after. And, I think we're going to connect a lot of dots in listening to these guys talk about this entire situation. So let's keep it rolling.
Shifted from what it was supposed to be, which was, the Wizards, weren't they really that high, that good of a team before that? Didn't have a whole lot of wins. So it was going to be like just young players getting, playing, getting, he was the number one pick. You had a lot of young guys. And then it changed from MJ coming out of retirement and got to make the playoffs, got to make MJ look good. Everything was just kind of different. What did you see, Jihadi?
I think a lot of players became.
Oh, and by the way, forgot to do this. Shout out to Basketball News. Basketball News, this is obviously their content, their video. I'm reacting to their video, but, the credit goes to them. They're the ones who have, who got this and set it up. And, Eaton, he has his guys up here doing their thing. So shout out to them. Appreciate them getting this out there to the world, and we'll keep rolling.
That was coming into their own the year before became just particular role players, more or less. And it was unwritten rule that's just how it was going to go. It was an unwritten rule. That's how it's going to go. You're a role player. And so when Kwame came into the mix, I didn't feel like it was really enough room for Kwame to do anything there. It really wasn't enough room for a lot of players. I mean, most players that was used to putting up buckets, they left. They had to go because it just wasn't enough balls. So to me, just the position alone was a tough position for Kwame to be in coming in, because it would have been a tough position for me.
Right.
It was a tough position for me. Once all the flair wore off, and so for Kwame, it had to be a tough position. Then he coming in at 17, and what people don't really understand is how everybody's saying, okay, Kwame bust this. People didn't see how Kwame handled himself.
Mm-hmm.
Most people in that position, we saw Kwame every day. We talked to Kwame every day. He was our friend. He was our guy. Even though he was like a younger brother. And, you could tell he was going through his ups and downs, but he didn't break.
Right.
He never broke. He never broke. And imagine you at that age coming in that situation. Would have you, a lot of people would have broke. And to me, I saw sometime MJ as a mentor in a mentor role with Kwame, and I saw sometime he got on his head. But it was more of just, you had to really be able to understand Doug as a coach and his way. Doug, I never experienced nobody like Doug in his way, because I'm not from that world.
Right.
And so a lot of things, how Doug did them, would kind of, affect me or make my blood boil a little bit, and I had to get used to it.
Right.
So if you're not used to that coming in, it could turn you off really fast.
I think that's a good point. I think that's a really good point. I think that one of the biggest problems in how coaching can affect players and affect their psyche is that, there are coaches who are stuck in their ways. There are coaches who aren't very versatile in how they coach. They don't have the ability to bring it down a notch when they realize that they're dealing with a player who has not been exposed to the same kinds of situations as your traditional player would be. And in Kwame's situation here, he literally was coming from high school, 17-year-old. Now, for anybody who has played, high school sports and been able to go up to collegiate sports, whether it be Division I, Division II, Division III, there's a distinct difference between the way you are coached in high school and the way you are coached in college. Now, if you've ever been a professional athlete, there's also another factor in that when you get to the professional level, there's another way that you are coached in the professional level. These are three different styles of coaching that are actually necessary for the development of a player. In high school, it's about, basically you're being rah-rahed by your coach, and you're going out there and you're really just, playing out there having fun. It's more of the basics that you're being taught. You're not really getting into deep technique, philosophy, whether it be basketball, football, or whatever sport you may be playing. And when you get into the college level, and this is the college level, I believe, on for all sports, once you get to the college level, that was the level that I'd kind of ordained as the forged in fire level when it came to coaching. Coaches on the collegiate level tore you down and rebuilt you in their image, rebuilt you in the program's image, to create kind of that hive mind mentality where everyone is, being pushed to their limits and beyond to find out who are the mentally tough, to kind of set the hierarchy of roles for players on the team. And I know it was that way in football, because when I went to Purdue, I had one of the most old school coaches you could think of in Joe Tiller, RIP to Joe Tiller. But I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about the philosophy of teamwork and coming together to achieve a greater goal, coming together to create this whole movement as a football team for the glory of your university. All these traditions, all these different ways that you are kind of indoctrinated into that collegiate mind state. Those are all things that, you have to go through to a certain extent to prepare you for the professional level of sports, which on the professional level of sports, there is no tearing down. They're not rebuilding you. You are a built product that is now going to be fine-tuned to a special level of production. And that level of production is what is going to be expected. And they create the pressure to actually polish and better your craft through evaluation. The evaluation process is a daily thing. So you're being evaluated by your position coaches, by the scouts, by the general managers. They're watching your film. They're dissecting your film. They're dissecting, your strengths. They're looking at how to conceal your weaknesses, and you are elevated as a player into this new level of understanding of what your role on your team is really about. And you have to kind of go through that process in order to be able to have the foundation set so that you can thrive as a professional athlete. And it doesn't mean, and everybody's idea of what is successful is obviously subjective. So there will be different levels of success for every player, but there is an acute understanding across the board of what is expected because you have been brought into a new level of understanding. And when you go from high school to professional, you miss a critical part. A critical part of that process is missed. So you have to be handled differently so that you can be brought into, so you can slowly be brought into these new levels of understanding. And at 17, your brain isn't even developed enough to really grasp that. Hell, I grasped everything from the collegiate level by the time I was going into my second and third year. I grasped everything on the professional level by the time I was going into my second and third year. So it took time for me mentally, and this is somebody who went into the professional level of football at 23. You know, this is a different time, or this is a time where even at 23, my preconceived notion of the professional level of football was different than what it actually was when I got there. So there was a retooling for me mentally and understanding how all this stuff works, and then being able to understand the language of it, and then being able to understand the speed of it, and being able to maintain consistent habits, which are, you know, definitely important when you get to that level. But I think that you miss that when you don't have what you miss a lot. You're not able to actually reach that level when you skip one of the steps. And the collegiate level of the tear down and rebuild is what Kwame Brown missed. So you have to be very delicate. So it's a very delicate process with him as a 17-year-old now on the professional level. But we got a super chat here. Mexican Iron Man, $20 super chat. He says, "This is all cray cray. I appreciate your close coverage on this. And brother, I think you're on point on these issues. For your information, the whole thing is spilling over and also having major impact on Latino brothers too." Mexican Iron Man, hey man, I appreciate that very much. Thank you, bro. You know, I always love your support. You've been supporting me from day one. You know, so no, I think you're absolutely right. I think we're going to see a little bit. I think there's a little bit of a reckoning that's happening right now with Kwame Brown and how he has kind of put this whole media thing on blast, because you're seeing these caricatures like Stephen A. Smith beginning to replicate themselves in different sports. They're having the Stephen A. Smiths of different sports. These guys who were just really, you know, really using their platform to entertain in a way that, you know, obviously is not always productive for the message that they're trying to get out in how they critique and how they also overly berate some athletes. I mean, it's crazy, but let's keep going.
I mean, there was a lot going on, and I mean, let's even back up a little bit, because when Kwame came out of the draft, do y'all remember? You know, because I was in there rehabbing, so I was there the whole time when everybody left, and then they was bringing guys in for the draft. And I remember they brought in all the top big men in the draft. They brought in Tyson Chandler, and they brought in Eddie Curry. They brought in Tyson Chandler twice. I'm there watching it the whole time. I watched those drafts, literally. And you could probably ask Tyson and Eddie Curry, and they'll tell you it wasn't even close with Kwame and them. It wasn't close. He was too strong with Tyson, and he was too quick for Eddie Curry, and he destroyed them all in the workouts. He was clearly the best big man in the draft. He was the number one pick. If those were the number one picks, the prospects who they brought in to work out, Kwame was the best out of that group.
Kwame destroyed in practice, though. He destroyed in practice every
But
day.
he was killing.
He destroyed in practice.
And then Doug Collins happened. And this is the thing that I saw. And I talked about this before. I saw Doug Collins. It almost seemed like he had it in for Kwame and was trying to take his confidence. That's what I saw. But Tinez, tell me what you saw, what you remember from back those times.
I mean, I'm with you. I think I really believe Doug was only just going by what Mike wanted him to do. You know, at the end of the day, Doug was there for Mike. So Mike brought him in to basically let Mike do whatever Mike needs to do. You know, that's kind of how it was. Me personally, man, you know, with Quan, man, I just think that they just, you know, never really gave him that shot. Again, I'm like Jihadi. I have seen some time where Mike, talk to him in a way where giving him, instructions about what to do. And then I have been around where he has said some words to the young boy that I was like, damn. I'm with Jihadi. He didn't break though. He didn't break.
Mm-hmm.
And I ain't gonna lie, at 17 years old, it'd have been hard for me, especially from how I was raised, to deal with somebody to talk to me like, the way they talk to him. I mean, I already know me. I probably got in a fight with him. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'd have been fighting. Hey,
so here you have guys who are speaking directly about the situation and the relationship with Michael Jordan. Now, Michael Jordan, again, with all respect that is due to him, he has a place in this entire story as a villain. Because to me, when you look at and when you listen to what these guys are saying, these are professionals. And I mean, you'll be out there on the field. That's like being in practice with Tom Brady. If you're in practice with Tom Brady and Tom Brady starts just ripping a rookie, that's one thing. You may not pay attention to it. It may not be a huge deal to you at the moment. But if a pattern of this starts to build up and he just continues to rip this one rookie, continues to go after this one rookie, and coaches are going to be hesitant to step in and put an end to it because you're dealing with Tom Brady. This is probably one of the most, one of the fiercest competitors in all of sports. This is going to be a situation where players who do have status and influence within the team will be hesitant to step up and try and quell a situation where they think that a guy is going too far. Because it's one thing to put pressure on a young guy because you have that veteran status. It's one thing to put pressure on them and to try and see if you can squeeze more production out of them through that, because there's a way you can do that and it works. But there is a line. And it's a gray area, but I think a lot of times you'll see that line crossed in situations where it's not necessary, where there really was no need to all of a sudden get to that level. And I think that's where you're hearing these guys saying, hey, it was a young guy, a young 17-year-old player, and we knew that we felt like he was doing too much, but what could we say? The coach that was brought in here was brought in by Jordan. He was beholden to Jordan, and Jordan knew all of this. He's very self-aware. He understands who he is. He understands what he can do. So he took advantage of that, and he used it in any way he saw fit, which, hey, in a different landscape, as a player with the Bulls, that is something that works for the betterment of all of these veteran athletes, many of whom will have their legacy shaped by Jordan. That works, and it helps elevate those guys' level of play. But in this situation, dealing with a 17-year-old player can be destructive, can be very destructive if you go too far. I always talk about Blaine Gabbert. Because he has kind of been treated much in the same way as a guy who came into the NFL with the Jaguars as the number 3 overall pick, the youngest player in the NFL, who was already who was thrust into a situation where he was made a starter when he surely should not have been made a starter. And when the inevitable failure of his rookie year was complete for reasons that were beyond his control, people labeled him almost immediately. They labeled him as scared. They labeled him as a bust. They labeled him as a guy who is, who kind of like how you saw they did with Sam Darnold when he was on the sideline saying, man, I'm seeing ghosts. They labeled him as one of those guys. And it was so far from the truth, because if you were behind the veil and you actually saw what they were actually putting Blaine Gabbert through and having him with a quarterback's coach that had never been a quarterback's coach in his entire career of coaching, that was now a quarterback's coach for the youngest player in the NFL, who had all these expectations after they released David Garrard the week before the first week of the first game of the season, our quarterback who actually took us to the playoffs, who actually was very well liked in the city and very much looked up to by his peers on the team. This put him in a situation that applied so much pressure to him that there was no way that he was going to be successful. There were so many things, so many elements on that team that I literally was looking at it and saying, there's no way that Blaine is going to be able to overcome all these different things. He doesn't even know the playbook. He got to training camp with the last 3 days of training camp. So by week 3, he's the starter. This guy's not ready to be playing in the NFL yet. He's here, yes, he is. He has that. He has the ability, but he is not ready mentally. He has not been prepared to go out there and play, and they threw him out there anyway, and it severely hampered him in his career. Because now, after his rookie season, the project was, how do we fix Blaine Gabbert? So you have a new coach come in, you have a new offense coordinator, another completely new offense, and you're expecting that now this guy is going to take steps forward. It didn't work that way, and we're seeing pretty much that in that kind of scenario play out here with Kwame Brown. So let's keep going.
You only can say so much
Right.
to a person. And at 17, I mean, I was a loose cannon at 17, so it was a little different.
Right.
So but Kwame stayed quiet, man. He stayed humble. You know, like kind of like what's going on now. I mean, I just feel like, you know, first of all, he ain't crazy.
No.
He's a very, you know, he's very smart guy. He's not crazy. So let's just get that out there real quick. He's just basically speaking facts. And when you speak facts, I mean, the first thing come out of people's mouth is, you know, that person must be crazy, because there's only so many people got the balls, man, to actually speak up the way he's doing right now.
Yeah, that's true. I think that everything he said there is true. Kwame is speaking the truth, and they try to dismiss him by calling him crazy, but we all know that that's not the case. So got a super chat here from Lavery Adams, €5, or this is 5 what? That's €5, I believe, or pounds. He says, listening to what you said about the process of college, what do you think about the narrative out there that incite people to skip college? Well, you know, honestly, I never, I guess in my, you know, back in the day, I kind of looked at this situation with players coming out of high school to play basketball. You know, I felt like that was, if there was any sport where that was actually a possibility of something that could be done from a physical aspect, you can have high school basketball players go into the NBA. Physically, there is a way to be good enough to be able to make it into the NBA as a high school player. That's not possible in football. It's not, for a lot of different reasons. But mainly, it's not because there is a level of physicality in the NFL that you cannot be prepared for in any way, shape, or form coming out of high school. It will literally, it would be a bloodbath. It would be a very big mistake. And I don't think there's a scout or a team in the NFL that would look at a high school player and say, yeah, he's ready to play in the NFL. But in basketball, it's a little bit different. I think that there is a level of athleticism and natural talent that can be nurtured from the high school level to the professional level. But again, you're missing one of the big steps in the mental developmental process that an athlete needs to go through in college. You're going to be missing that important piece to the puzzle if you go from high school to the NBA. It's natural, but I think the problem is that you can't get that piece of the puzzle if you're, you know, in the NBA, coming from high school to the NBA. You can't get that piece. And the way that coaching is handled from philosophically and with time management, there's not enough time to help build that piece in the NBA. So generally, the players that are successful coming from high school to the NBA, in my opinion, they're successful because they already had an innate understanding, and they already had a part of that within themselves in that missing piece that was able to develop based on their natural traits, their natural level of competitiveness. Like Kobe Bryant, obviously, unbelievable competitor, only probably second to Jordan. if not equal to Jordan, to be honest. And he had that level of competitiveness, but also he was being nurtured in the right way as a young guy. And they weren't, he wasn't stacked with the same kind of pressures. He wasn't. Kobe was not stacked with the same kind of pressures that a guy like Kwame was coming from high school to the NBA. Kobe had a much different background. His background was a military background. He'd been in different cultures over a number of years of his young life, and he had learned different levels of discipline and focus in being a child of military parents. It literally gave him those small crumbs that allowed him to kind of grasp onto that entire notion of being a mentally tough competitor. And that's not to say that Kwame wasn't mentally tough, because like you hear his guys here say, he ain't never break. He never broke. But I would say that Kwame just didn't have the space as a player in that franchise to be able to find a mentor that would actually like be a mediator between what was happening with Jordan and him. He didn't have, and also with the coach, he didn't have a lot of the tools that he needed to navigate that situation. He didn't have it. The culture there was not a good culture. So you can't grow plants with bad soil. And that's where his situation really did change. And that's why I feel like, honestly, you do have to experience a portion of that college teardown, that forged in fire phase of your sports career in order to be able to go into that professional level and have a better chance at being successful.
Can't deny facts, though. Can't deny facts.
You can't deny facts, man.
You can't deny
facts, man.
It's interesting.
We don't rock with them, though.
It's interesting because a lot of the people, after he said it, they were calling me, asking me to verify because they didn't believe that MJ could have treated him as badly as what Kwame said that he treated him. And it's interesting because, all right, so remember after The Last Dance, I did an interview with NBA Buzz, Mikey Gomagala. I can't pronounce his name, but it's NBA Buzz. And so I was talking about the Doug Collins aspect and the stuff that I saw from there, right? And so, after all this stuff happened, NBA Buzz put that article back out. I mean, the interview back out. And I'm talking about all this stuff with Doug and how everything was Kwame's fault. And it was like, sometimes there would be stuff that didn't even have nothing to do with Kwame, and it was Kwame's fault. And it was like he was like the scapegoat, because I saw Doug wasn't going to get on MJ. He wasn't going to say, MJ, you did this wrong, you did this wrong.
Nah.
It was Kwame, you didn't do this right. And I'm looking, I'm like, what Kwame got to do with this? And that's what I saw so much, though. But Seaway, tell me a little bit about what you saw.
I've seen that too. I've seen that. I've seen it myself as a professional, as a pro football player. I've seen guys who became scapegoats because this guy's making too much money for a coach to start chewing him out, even though we looking at the film and we seeing that it was him he was off. Like, we talked about these certain paths that guys had to take. We talked about angles. We talked about footwork, and he's off. But the coach doesn't really say really anything watching the film. But the next guy over, who may be a younger guy, he's getting talked bad to because really he's thrown off by the big shot not taking his proper footwork, not getting his hands in the right spot. And that affected his partner's ability to block that guy, but he's getting chewed out for it. So he is chewing out the big shot through the young guy, which, when you're in those kind of situations, it can be like, well, shit. I mean, that ain't got nothing to do with him. That's really on the other guy. So you see that there is that's bad culture. That's where you see guys who learn, who really aren't taught in the manner that really is productive and helps to create chemistry on the team.
I think from the beginning, man, when M first came back, I knew it was gonna be different. I suppose that we had one TV game, and they had two different like TV schedules. If he came or he didn't come. If he came, we had like 40 some games. Man, we were on TV all the time. So I knew it was gonna be totally different. You know what I'm saying? So all accounts that I got was just like yours at times that you saw it, but Kwame killed those in those workouts. It was no question. Then they brought them back again, and he did it again. So I can only imagine, like, you know, I've put myself in his shoes at 17 years old, and trying to one live up to that #1 draft pick status or what have you, but just playing in the NBA period at 17, none of us would have been ready. None of us been ready. You know what I'm saying? I remember one instance. You'll remember when we played the Celtics up in Uncas, Connecticut, preseason, and M opened up the restaurant, the sports bar, whatever, inside the casino, right?
Casino, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we went. We were all, you know, we was all invited. We went. So after it was over, we went to the casino. So I'm with Kwame. And everybody knows who he is. They were like, hey, you got to get out. You got to be 21, blah, blah, blah. So he and I left. We went back to the room and, you know, chilled for a while and just kicked it like good fellas, you know what I'm saying, like we do. But he couldn't hang with all of us and do things like that. Now, me and Jihadi, you know, we kind of took him on in D.C. We had him out there, right? But, you know, that's got to be tough, man. Like, if we didn't do those things with him, you know, at home he had his fam. He had some fam come up. You know, I can only imagine how tough that is, man. Like, you can't be around your teammates. You're used to doing that stuff. And but when he was out there playing, man, it was so much on him, man. Like he I don't know if y'all remember the little warm-up drill. We used to jump on one leg, and we're all jumping, right? And we're jumping pretty high, and they would yell at Kwame, "Jump higher!" Touch the ceiling, and we're like, okay. And you could see him really straining, right, trying to jump higher and higher. It's like it's only so high he can jump on one. You know, this is just warm up. Keep going, keep going, keep going, and then if something was not, if he didn't understand something, we'd run a play, and they would tell him to do something. You could see the confusion in his mind because he just didn't know. And then it would be like, "Hey, come on, next, somebody get in." You know, time, get in at the floor, take a spot. You see what I'm saying? You know, so it was just hard on him. And then, like you said, man, we, you know, with MJ, it was like we coming in to win. You know, he didn't. It wasn't a lot of time to. Hey,
it wasn't a grooming. It wasn't a situation for. It wasn't a situation for a grooming process.
Right.
Exactly. Not for a 17-year-old.
And I think that's a potent point right there. You know, at the professional level, there is not enough reps. There's not enough reps in practice for guys who don't understand what's being asked of them on a particular play or during a particular portion of practice. There's not that time for a guy to get multiple reps over and over and over to learn it. Practice goes by fast, practice moves fast, and if you're not, you know, that's why there's so much emphasis on film after practice, film at home, you know, being able to, you know, absorb all that information for a young guy who's 17 years old. I mean, listen, man, this shit is crazy. As a rookie in the NFL, in all honesty, my entire first year in the NFL, for as much studying of the playbook I did, for as much taking of notes that I did as a rookie at 23, by the end of that first season, I didn't know I still didn't know nothing. I still could not answer questions from my position coach about different looks and different defenses versus certain plays. I didn't understand it. It was a different language. I was learning a different language. I was learning a new philosophy. And it took me 2 seasons going into my third for the light to come on. And then from there, I was able to rely on my physical abilities, my athleticism, my strength, my leverage. Those are all things that I was able to learn to be able to lean on after I understood what it was the hell I was supposed to be doing. And just to give you guys, let me see, I think I got it in here. Yeah, it's in here. And just to give you guys a little bit of and I mean, obviously this is football, this is not basketball, but, and shout out to Maurice Jones-Drew, because he's the one who gave me this a couple years ago when I asked for it for some business stuff. This is an NFL playbook. This is the Raiders playbook from 2014, I believe. But, I mean, if you go through this thing, there is so much in here that you have to know. There is a litany of things that you have to know. And there are rules. There are different rules and different sets of rules. There are different sets of rules that you have to know all the time. You have to understand these rules and where the small nuances are between all of them. That takes years. That takes years to really grasp onto. If for the average player, it takes years. For the above average, for the good players, it still takes at least a year, at least a season. And that's just understanding the actual X's and O's. From there, you still have another couple of levels of understanding that you'll achieve as a player that make it easy for you by the time you're in your third, fourth year. You're doing it without thinking about it, because these things are complex, and you have to be able to hold information for long periods of times, and they have to be like second nature to you. And for a 17-year-old, that's not even feasible. That's not even feasible. I could never even begin to even consider understanding an NFL playbook when I was 17. Hell, I didn't even know I didn't even know all really the rules in college. I just was going out there and playing. I knew which way I was supposed to go block, and I went. But the nuance is so deep the higher up that you get. And this guy was 17 years old. You cannot coach him the same way that you're coaching these other grown men. It's just not going to work. Well, let's get back to it.
Kwame came in. Tell me this. When Kwame came in, we all knew the age he was. But did he act 17, 18?
No.
He was a mature dude.
No. Yeah.
You know?
No, he didn't.
Right? And I say this, and I always say this. All right, he was the number 1 draft pick. But if he wasn't, say for instance he was number 15. Mm-hmm. His career was good.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, he had a decent career. Mm-hmm. You know, his career was good. Yeah. Right? So, 12 years in the NBA? You know, you can't last 12 years in. I know some number 1 draft picks didn't last 12 years in the NBA. You know what I'm saying?
And also, we got to understand, too, you know, when Mike came in thinking about Mike.
Yes.
Mike didn't come in to be like, I'm here to help y'all get better. No,
it was Mike. The whole point, Mike coming
about doing Mike. I mean, and Mike was playing my position, so I knew that it was going to shorten up my time.
Right.
So, you know, I'm sitting on the bench, hated. Like people don't realize, you know, when you're an athlete, bro, and you want to play, I'm not sitting there to be a cheerleader. You know, I'm not. That's just, you know, your mind is not like that, and people think you should be happy you're on the team. No, bro. I know, like anybody else know, if you ain't performing, you ain't getting another contract. Mm-hmm. So at that time, you know, I'm sitting there just like, man, this guy, I know he's going to play the 3 spot because he ain't going to be fast enough to go for the 2. So I knew he going to be playing my spot. So I knew I had to sit back, and I talked to Wes Unseld because, you know, y'all don't know, but I was trying to get traded. I went to him and tried to get traded. When they told me he was coming back, I ain't gonna even lie. I said, and Wes was like, he ain't gonna last the whole season. Don't worry about it, Nesby. He ain't gonna. And I was like, Wes, I'm telling you, man. I can see right now, it's a wrap for me. You know? And it was kind of like, it was just like that. I knew my minutes was gonna get low. You know, I just knew all that, man. And not trying to knock Mike, because Mike just being Mike. But everybody thought Mike was coming to like really help us out. But Mike had one thing in mind. That's Mike.
To win.
And I think that's a huge point that people got to understand. And I didn't even understand that initially. Like, even when it was happening in real time back then, I remember I always thought of it as Michael Jordan's coming back to play for the Washington Wizards to help build the Washington Wizards, to help develop them. And I always thought it was such a cool idea because, you know, what better person to have help improve the mentality and the culture of a franchise than, you know, a guy who's looked at as the greatest basketball player of all time in many circles, in most circles, Michael Jordan. Well, as you're hearing right now from these guys, it was never about improving the Washington Wizards. It was about Michael Jordan and him as an ultra competitor. Even, you know, that can be a fault. That can be a flaw when it supersedes the goal of the team, when it supersedes the growth of a team. And that can create a bad culture, because what does it create for the other players in the team, on the team, who, like he just said, these guys were expecting that he was coming in to help them on many levels, not just as a player, but also as a mentor, also as a coach, you know, helping to kind of set the mentality for the entire franchise. But that was never his purpose to them. To them, his purpose was just, it's Mike's back and Mike is going to win. And that, again, that can create a bad culture, because what is the one thing that creates with other players? Resentment. Resentment destroys chemistry. So, you know, that's something definitely to think about.
That was the organization's goal anyway. I mean, that was the whole goal. Is like, hey, we need to bring some people in the stands. This has to be the Mike show. That's the whole point.
So if Mike wouldn't have come out of retirement, you would have seen a whole different situation and a whole different Kwame Brown. There wouldn't have been the same, you know, dynamic. It would have been completely different. When he came in, he had it's like seeing somebody transform from having their confidence to seeing their confidence being taken from them. It's like, and it was two different Kwames. It was like I'm talking about as far as on the court.
Will we have the same coach? Would the same coach be in the
equation? No, it can't be the same coach. Doug can't be nowhere in this equation.
What was the other coach, man?
Leonard Hamilton. Before that, no. But listen,
hey, he would have done better with Leonard Hamilton. Though.
Man, don't get me talking about that.
Leonard Hamilton let you play though.
He would have let Kwame play.
Yeah.
So all right. Do y'all remember? I don't know. I don't remember if this was when that year or the next year, but they would have Kwame, and Kwame told this story in one of the videos. They would have Kwame literally working out like it's a pre-draft workout before the game, 2 hours before the game. Do y'all remember that?
Yeah.
They would have him.
That shit is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Like, as a player, that would be unfathomable. It would be literally unfathomable to have a player working out like an actual workout, like a tryout style workout, 2 hours before you're gonna go play in a game. I mean, shit. I'd be tired coming in from pregame workout, from the pregame workout on Sunday. Like, you tired when you get back into the locker room. You're not tired like you're exhausted, but you're winded. You're warm. You're warmed up. But that's a taxing, you know, part of the pregame ritual that, you know, it gets you ready to play, but it's just enough anymore, and it's going to affect your ability to like last through the course of the game. But to have this guy working out for 2 hours before the game, like he was a guy they were trying out to come on the team. And if you've ever, I mean, I did a workout with, after I left Jacksonville, I did a workout with with the Titans. I went to Tennessee. I met with the coaches. They wanted me to work out with them. And I mean, this was in the off season. I did a workout with these cats, and I'm like, God damn, I'm hurting. Like, and this is 7-year professional, and I'm hurting in the workout. I mean, I'm holding my shit together. I'm poised. I'm keeping my chest out, but in my head, I'm like, shit. If we go another 15 minutes, I'm gonna have to tap for a minute and take a knee, because these cats. I mean, what the hell they be doing here in Tennessee? Shit. I ain't never did workouts like this in Jacksonville, but you know, that's the kind of workout that they were giving Kwame Brown before an actual regular season game. Like, I've seen guys work out before games, like have strong, intense workouts before football games. Those guys didn't play. And if it was starters, it was during the preseason. Yeah, we do a workout. We do some sprints before the game starts, but we ain't playing. We're not even suiting up. So we can do that kind of workout to get our burn, to kind of replace that burn that you'll get if you was playing. But this was crazy.
So we would all start coming in, Kwame be in there drenched sweat. You know what I mean? Just be like, man, what you been doing? Like, they've been working me out, running sprints, doing lifting, all this different stuff. And then come to the game and then put him in the game, and he's dead tired. Like, I'm sitting here next to him on the bench. He's tired. They done work this dude out for 2.5, 3 hours before the game. He's tired. And I'd be like, why are they doing this with him? Like, why are they? It's like they trying to set him up. Like, what's
like it's sabotage?
Boom.
Yeah.
It's sabotage. Now, there could not be another explanation, in my opinion, because everything you do during the week, and I'm speaking from a football perspective, but I think that it is completely relatable to basketball because it's a team sport. All the work you do during the week is meant to prepare you for Sunday. As you get later into the week, the intensity of your work, it falls off. Why? Because you need that energy. You need to preserve energy. You need to recover. You need to be rested for Sunday. The one thing that is purely destructive to teams that have outdated styles of preparation is that a lot of times they overwork the player. They overwork the player, and by the time you get to Sunday, you start to see more and more players fall off earlier in the game from fatigue. You start to see guys get hurt because when you're fatigued, your form begins to, waver, and you begin to get caught in compromising positions where at the speed of the game, you are more susceptible to being injured because of that. You see that happen. So that is, part and parcel, the biggest reason why you don't keep that pressure and keep that intensity at that high level when you're preparing to go out and actually play games that count. But again, like I said before, the tearing down of Kwame was unnecessary, and it was not the right way to go about trying to build him in whatever mold they wanted to. But when you did these kind of things, that was actually a sabotage on his career. That is literally setting him up for failure, setting him up to look bad, setting him up to be labeled. And that is, in a way, for me, when I think about it, that's a way to shift potential future blame from the people who actually were the masterminds to the person who can be scapegoated because he was the one out there performing.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
It's like they try to set him up. Like, why are they doing this with him? Like, why are they? It's like they try to set him up. Like,
it's sabotage?
Yeah, basically. You
And
know,
I felt bad for him. I was like, I just be like, I wouldn't know what to say. I'd be like, dog, this is messed up. Like, I don't, you know, and it was after that, it was then the belittling. And I don't know, like, so do y'all remember, you remember how MJ, I remember I think we was in Charlotte, I want to say, and there was a lot of people there for our shoot around for some reason. I don't know if we had to do an appearance or something like that. There was a lot of people in there. And afterwards, MJ took the ball, right? He kicked the ball in the stands. And he said, now go get it. And he told Kwame, go fetch the ball. And everybody was looking. And looked at Kwame's face, and I'm like, that ain't funny. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I understand
he told him get it before the
and rookie thing, but I was like,
He told him get it before the bus leaves. Remember we had shoot around.
You remember that?
Yeah, he kicked in his hands and told him to go get the ball and get it before the bus leave. You know what I'm saying? Because we was at shoot around. So, you know, we get on the bus and we're going back to the hotel. But yeah, he kicked it in the stands and told him, you know, go get it. You better be able to catch the bus. You know what I'm saying? So.
See, that's hazing. That's hazing. And you know, look, there and really no, that's past hazing, because now these guys are, you know, this is the end of practice, is a shoot around. He kicks the ball into the stands, tells them to go fetch. That's some Jordan shit for one. But again, that shows that kind of peels back that perception that Jordan was in any position to help the Washington Wizards as a franchise. He was there for him. And he saw this guy as a little whippersnapper that he didn't want to play with, or that he felt like wasn't good enough, or he felt like, you know, he would needed to be as hard as he could on the kid to try and break him. And he did shit like that. And I mean, that has an effect, man. I mean, that would have a negative effect on Kwame, mainly because it's almost as if not almost, it is him trying to embarrass Kwame. And you see his teammates right here. His teammates are right here validating that this was not about building Kwame up or grooming Kwame to be, a franchise player. It was about pulverizing him. And, you know, much respect to Kwame Brown. You didn't hear this guy coming out and talking shit in the media. You didn't hear him, you know, giving excuses. You didn't hear him blaming other people, but he knew what it was. There was blame to go to other people, but he never brought it up. Throughout his whole career, he just played ball. He did his job. And on the other side of that, while he's just doing his job, these people who are supposed to, be knowledgeable in the sports world, these analysts, you know, these people like Stephen A. Snitch, these guys not even demonized. They humiliated and they drug his character and his name through the mud for decades. You know, people in the NFL, when you ask people in the NFL about the biggest quote unquote busts in the NFL, there are a couple of names that come immediately to people's minds. Jamarcus Russell, Ryan Leaf. When you look at those guys' careers, they didn't perform well. And in a lot of ways, especially in a more modern time, when at least for Jamarcus, you have access to seeing how they prepare, to seeing how they are growing within their franchise. Jamarcus Russell, and his teammates and his peers will validate this. He didn't work hard, and everyone knew it. Everyone saw it. It's evident. With Ryan Leaf, I think Ryan Leaf, to a certain extent, his situation was not in the grand scheme in the history of the NFL. People will likely always point to Ryan Leaf, but I even think, because I've kept up with Ryan Leaf and his struggles and his demons that he's fought, and also looked back at his career. it was a bad time, and it was a bad, and he was in a bad situation, and he didn't handle it well. He had ability, but he just didn't have the composure. He didn't have the poise, and the pressure that gets mounted on you when you're a number one pick is so immense that if you are not able to quickly develop, one, thick skin, two, poise, and be able to go out and perform to the best of your ability, things can fall apart fast. But I wouldn't even look at Ryan Leaf as a bigger bust than a guy like Jamarcus Russell, because Jamarcus Russell willfully allowed himself to become a bust. We saw all of the uncanny traits that he had as a player, and he never even tried, and it was there for us to see. He never tried to excel. He never tried to stay, and he admitted it himself when he tried to come back some years later after he retired, that he never actually gave a damn. He just came for the money, which, hey, you being honest at least. But that's the kind of label that a guy like Stephen A. Snitch tried to put on Kwame Brown. And his teammates reject that because they know the truth. But he is stuck with that narrative for decades. He has gone out of his way to use Kwame as a launching pad. And I think we're seeing, for the first time, I think right now, we're seeing those chickens come home to roost. We're seeing that karma coming to find him full circle. And I really do hope that it don't end right now. It doesn't subside right now. I hope that people hold him accountable, and people really see through the facade that he puts up at times. Because ever since he kind of reached a certain level, Stephen A. Snitch has really become a company man, and he spews for the company. And he won't even necessarily disagree with you. He told us he had to go to his people, Disney, to get greenlit to respond to Kwame. And of course, the rest is history. It was the weakest comeback or response that I've seen from anybody when it comes to beef. So we've seen these things. We've seen these things play out in different ways, but a lot of times it's very rare. It's very rare that you get to actually get a peek behind the veil and see the reality of the situation. And big shout out to these guys, Jihadi White, Eaton Thomas, Chris Whitney, and Nesby for actually speaking it. I mean, these guys are retired athletes, and I can relate to that, being able to kind of go back into that mind state and think of those times and kind of talk about candidly what the reality of the situation is. And the reality is that Kwame was getting fucked. He was getting sabotaged, and they really sent his career down a path that could have been much different had he had the right kind of people around him. Michael Jordan wasn't the right kind of guy. I think and he still gets a chance to this day. We see Michael Jordan still running the Hornets. Like, he don't know how to pick players. We see that. Like, that's evident for us. That's not something that you really can debate. Michael Jordan has not has really done nothing to really elevate that franchise. He's if anything, he's been in the way of it.
So,
but that
ball went way up there.
He punted it way up there.
Yeah, it went way up there.
But my thing is that I just didn't understand why. It's like you draft this kid, he's number one pick, and it's like you're almost intentionally trying to tear him down. Now, I don't know. Maybe it was just an old school way of, I don't know, what, Bobby Knight tear you down to build you up. I couldn't understand it. So help me out. Help me out, Johnny.
I feel every rookie go through it. I ain't really go through it that much.
Not like that, though.
But every rookie go through, not like that. But my whole point is, every rookie wasn't 17. You get what I'm saying? You got to take some things in the equation. Like, when you bringing this person in, you got to understand that he didn't go through college to have a coach kick his ass in college.
Exactly what I was saying. football or basketball. That's the process. From high school, that raw talent, that raw energy, to college, where they literally forge you in the flames. They forge your entire core, everything that you will take with you forward to the professional level that has created a certain level of resolve, a certain level of determination, mental toughness. Those are all built in college. You're torn down and you are reforged in the flames, almost quite literally, so that you can overcome. That's where you learn to overcome adversity and pressure. That's where you learn to overcome it. And on the professional level, that's where you learn to actually that's where you learn to be able to not only overcome adversity, not only maintain your poise, but to excel even further in those moments. So it's literally like walking up steps. If you start skipping steps, you may get to the end faster, but you're going to be missing some of the work.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You didn't have the coaches like we had that get in your face this close and spit and yell, and you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we developed that tough skin. Right? You got to understand a process that he skipped, and you got to take that equation when you're bringing them in.
You know, I'm older than all y'all, so.
Here we go.
I think like that. Hey, Tinez, get over.
Do me a favor. If you haven't done so already, smash that like button. Make sure you share this stream with your people. I do appreciate everybody who's in here right now. Again, I am Uche Nwaneri. I'm the Observant Lineman. And going through this video, Kwame Brown's teammates from the Washington Wizards talking candidly about what was really happening in Washington during his time with the Wizards, and really shedding a light on what could be called, to a certain extent, the abuse that he went through. And, again, much respect to Kwame Brown, he never opened his mouth and talked about these things and complained to people. He gritted his teeth and he fought to play as well as he could. He fought to do what he could with what he had. And the man played 13 years in the NBA, so there's no way you can look at that and call him a bust. Ryan Leaf didn't play 13 years in the NFL. Jamarcus Russell didn't play 13 years in the NFL. Hell, come on now. Busts don't last. Busts don't last. So for a guy to be around for 13 years is a credit to him and his ability to persevere over the adversity that he was seeing. Make sure y'all show some love. Hit that like button. Let's keep going here. I'm gonna I'm gonna find a spot to kind of stop at. This is a hour-long video, and obviously, we can't get through all of it right here, right now. But I'll find a good spot for us to stop. Maybe another 5 minutes or so from the video. But I think that I think you guys understand what I'm getting at here, and how. There are many more things that have an effect and actually can be both uplifting and can be detrimental for players that you never will hear about. But when these talking heads get on TV as analysts, they will try and create a narrative for entertainment purposes, and they pass it off as true knowledge, and it's just a bunch of bullshit. So you got to take what they say even with a grain of salt, because they're not privy to the true knowledge of what's going on all the time.
Yeah, like I told you now.
And real quick, Josh from Detroit, he has just joined as a new member. He's a camp body. Welcome to the O-line. For those of y'all who don't know, when you are part of a membership on my channel, when you have a membership, you part of the O-line. T-O-L. O-line! So know that. We got a super chat again from Lavery Adam. He says, I remember seeing Kwame play with the Lakers, and it didn't seem that he was out there to prove people wrong. The truth is maybe in between. And hey, that's a valid point. That's a fair point. I think that there is, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know whether or not there were aspects of his game that, you know, just weren't considered good or were considered good. I mean, that is for each individual to look at his game and decide for themselves. But, you know, I think that Kwame as a player was out there and understood and was very self-aware of what his role was on the team. Like, he played his role and he did it to the best of his ability. And that's all you can ask for. That's all you can ask for. So, you know, thanks for that super chat there, Lavery. Appreciate you very much, my man. Let's keep this thing rolling.
No, for real, to piggyback off what Heidi said, I think it is old school, all right? And it just depends on your coach and your teammates. My rookie year, 93, y'all halfway just now born. In 93, I didn't have to do all that. I just had to carry a camera on the road to practice, which we never used, and a bag of balls. You know what I'm saying? No homo, no pause on that. But, you know, carry the ball bag into the thing, but nothing crazy. Then I've seen other people come into the league, and it was just like, get the donuts or do this or that. And then I've seen some people who intentionally try to make someone late for the plane. Like that, I don't understand. I was like, come on, man, why would you do that to anybody? To, you know, purposely make them late to get to the plane, you know, to go to the next city or whatever, you know, what have you. But it is old school. Some of it went, you know, didn't rub us the right way because, you know, you guys came up at the time. You're like, whoa, you're not going to talk to me any kind of way now. You see what I'm saying? And like you said, Jahadi, to piggyback of that, Jahadi coming straight out of high school. When you're the man, you know how it is. Always know how to be the man in high school. Your coach is not really going to get on you like he can do everybody. He'll get on you, but he ain't going to cut you out. So that was a shell shock to Kwame. You know what I'm saying? You know, I mean, you saw in The Last Dance, Oak had Pip, you know, choked up. You know what I mean? That's Oak. That's that old school. You know what I'm saying? But Kwame he handled it though. I mean, I remember he used to be at the crib, and he was on point. He didn't cry and bitch and complain about it. Why they doing this and that? You know, in a way of man, I'm tired of. I'm not doing this shit no more. That type of way. You know what I mean? He was just like, dang, man, they trying to kill a man out here. Get a brother out here, you know. But he kept going, man. He kept going, bro.
For him to persevere through that at 17, 18 years old, you know, I remember hearing, you know, Doug Collins wanting Jahadi like to foul him harder, like hit him harder, like make him feel it, like, you know, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why do you want Jahadi to foul him harder? You know what I mean? We're in practice. We're teammates. He like wanting you, and it would always just, it would bother me because I didn't understand. So say you have a high school person coming out, you know he's younger, it seems counterproductive to try to do that to him. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like that's a good tactic to use to get the best out of your high school player that you know is younger. And I would look at it and I just kept thinking, well, are they trying to set him up for failure? Or are they trying to set up a scapegoat just in case things don't go right, that they have somebody to blame?
Exactly. These motherfuckers get it. This is exactly what I've been saying and talking about, just my perspective on why these kind of things happen. A lot of times it's not always about the player that they doing it to. It's about them trying to set up to save their own skin, because there are many other issues that are keeping the team from progressing upward. And this dude literally was being set up to be a scapegoat for the failure that Michael Jordan had as a Washington Wizard, for him not being able to actually do anything to really push that franchise up. He became a ticket seller because it's Michael Jordan. And that image in that spotlight would all be magnified by him being seen as this guy who's coming in to actually like orchestrate a new a level of new success for the Washington Wizards, but it was never that at all. It was never that at all. It was not that. And they just didn't have the genuine intent of developing a guy like Kwame. It wasn't about him, because if it was about him, that takes away from Jordan's light. That takes away from his spotlight. That takes away from him being the main attraction. So you can't have the first overall pick growing into this star player for this team while Michael Jordan is there. That ain't gonna happen, because it's his show. And these are things that are all we're able to validate all of these theories by listening to the players who were there.
I'm just coming up with different scenarios, trying to make sense of why they would continue doing that. You know what I mean? But the part that I also had an issue with was the media. And that's why you see Kwame scorching the earth on the media right now. Like right now, Kwame got, you remember the movie Kill Bill? And you remember when the white lady had everybody's name on the thing, and then she scratched one off, and it was time to go to the next person. That's how Kwame is right now with the media. And I feel him. Stephen A. Smith, well, you know what I mean? Skip Bayless, you know what I'm saying? He's just going down the list. But the story should have been, and it could have been, this young high school player persevered through all of this adversity in DC with the best player ever, you know what I mean, who was on him like that, Doug Collins on him like that, and he still persevered. That could have been the narrative. But they chose it to be, oh, he's a bust, he's terrible, he's this, and it was like they chose to do that. They didn't have to do that.
But we gotta understand. I mean, they're protecting Mike, bro.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That's the whole key about all this. They protected Mike. They don't. Nobody wants to go at Mike, you know. But I can tell you, just by talking to Mike and being around Mike. I mean, again, Mike worry about Mike, bro. Mike ain't worried about me, my family, and what I got to do in my life. You know, Mike, once I got done playing with Mike gone. You know what I'm saying? Mike ain't going around talking about teenagers, I can tell you that. But at the end of the day, it's like I always was wondering, like, how much Mike had in getting Kwame there. That was I feel that Wes Unseld and maybe the owner wanted Kwame, and Mike probably wanted somebody else. Cause it just to me seemed like they come at this young man so hard. Like,
you would want Kwame,
huh?
You would have wanted Kwame.
Yeah. But I'm just saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like people ain't. I don't mean to cut you off, man.
Yeah, I'm used to it.
People saying, he was a butt. You saw Kwame, that big old specimen, that fast.
Yeah.
Kwame had to. You would have wanted Kwame. You would have saw the number one pick.
Right, you know what? But you know what
me
is that because I guess what get me is that, you know, from day one, I remember we was in practice in here, and Mike's first, I think he was screaming out with Kwame you young boys stealing money. Y'all just stealing money. You know, he like going right in them right out the gate, bro. Right at the gate. So to me, I was just wondering, like, did Mike want somebody else, and they decided to go with a different kid? I mean, I mean different player. I don't know, man, because I ain't gonna lie, the boy had it hard, man. I mean, for him to be waiting 20 years and just not saying something, I commend him for that. Because
yeah, but all the people talking that had something to say.
Say it again.
So all the people that had something to say, all the media that have something to say about him.
Right.
That's like throwing a young fella in war, and then you sitting here, never been in war. You talking about the soldiers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're right.
None of those people who had something to say never could even fathom that type of situation.
Nah.
Or that experience.
I think that, wow. You know, it was an excellent point that was made that the media chose to run with the narrative of Kwame Brown as a bust, as a as a all-time mistake. And they did that to protect Michael Jordan. Because the truth of the matter is that Jordan is a shitty, terrible coach, manager, in any aspect of actually building a franchise, he has no skill and no talent whatsoever. And that's just from what we've seen, that's the truth. And in this situation, they literally sacrificed him, Kwame. They sacrificed him to protect Jordan because Jordan's image, Jordan's brand, his influence, these were things that were more valuable to the media than whether or not Kwame Brown had a fair chance to be a productive, successful basketball player. And even with all of that, he did persevere and become a productive and successful basketball player because he played 13 years. I don't care what his numbers say. To stay in the league is the hardest part. The NFL, the average career, 2.8 years. 2.8. If you make it past 1, you've done more than 99% of everybody else out there trying to play ball. He made it 13 in the NBA at a time when there wasn't really a way for him to fight back. There wasn't social media. There wasn't, hashtags. You know what I mean? There was no way for him to actually have a voice in that entire situation. All he could do was continue to work. All he could do was continue to work. And, I'll be a bust any day of the week if you're going to hand me $67 million and I'm going to play 13 years. I'll be a bust. You can call me a bust, whatever. Shit, I don't care. Got a super chat here from the coach for $4.99. He says, man, we finally got a bruh who was trench dog, who was a trench dog making content. I'm late to the party, bruh. Keep your hand in the dirt on cats and get them out the club. I appreciate that. The coach, appreciate that very much. Oh yeah, man, I'm O-line all the way. No, I'm just, I try to give you guys my perspective like that. And I feel like, I played 7 years in the NFL and I was a starter my entire career. I got 100 starts in the NFL out of like 112 games. And, I have been fully submerged in the culture of team sports, and I fully understand and am fully aware of the dynamics of it and how those things connect with not only the players, but also the coaches. I was actually very fortunate to have an excellent offensive line coach, Andy Heck. He's the O-line coach right now for the Kansas City Chiefs. That guy, in my opinion, the best offensive line coach in the NFL because he teaches you the game of football in every aspect so that you can be a better offensive lineman. Teaches you how to read defenses, teaches you how to identify blitzes, teaches you how to identify tells, teaches you why everything is being done on the field and what your role is in it and how you, because he was a player who played 13 years himself, he gives you the tricks of the trade. A highly knowledgeable guy. I was fortunate in having a guy like that to help develop me, and it paid dividends for me. I made it to my second contract as an NFL player, a 5-year extension. So, there really is, I feel like a lot that I can speak on when it comes to team dynamics, when it comes to the team sport culture and philosophy, because I've been in it and I've lived in it and I've played in it. And there are both positive stories about it, and there are nightmares. There are nightmares, and this was a nightmare. This is all of the ingredients of a sabotaging of a player by the people who call the shots. It's all of the telltale signs. I've seen it before. So I feel like I do have a legitimately sound, a legitimate place to speak from because I've been there. I've seen it happen to players. I've felt like it was it was tried on me at one point, and it's a whole different story and it's all off topic. But I felt like that was kind of at a certain point in my career they tried to play that game with me, and I won because I was just that much better than the guy that they were trying to put up there and trying to find a way to put in front of me. I was that much better that they had no choice. And it just in the moment they put me in, that fact that I was that much better was easy to see literally in that moment. But anyways, this is all just very, to me, profound. That and you know, I mean, God bless teammates, man, because teammates know what's real. They know what's real. They know what's real, and they see, and it's all, you know, when you have a feeling that you're being fucked over, they can see it and they can validate it. And that's what these guys are doing. And it's great that they came out and they actually spoke on it. It's great that they actually came out and spoke on it. So I'm going to go through 1 or 2 more minutes of this, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I got some things I got to get done. But again,
You know what I'm
I
saying?
appreciate everybody who's here on the stream. I appreciate everybody in the chat. I see you guys are having a great conversation talking about this. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure if this is your first time finding my channel, welcome. Please consider subscribing. If you're a follower of the channel, then you want to become a member, then by all means, that's something you could do as well. But I do really just appreciate the support, and I really appreciate you guys, showing love. I mean, because really, I'm just here to give my thoughts and my views, and it means a lot to me that you guys actually embrace that and see the legitimate and the honest and genuine intent that I have in speaking about what I know based on the things that we're seeing here. So let's go ahead. Let's find a spot to wrap this up, and then we will be moving on and ending the stream.
How you an authority figure on that experience when us four never had to have experience like that.
Right.
Nah.
Yeah.
And we've been through. We was there, so I know all things we've been through. We never had an experience like that, and we were NBA players. So imagine how rare that experience was for Kwame, and then somebody who would somebody who would never be able to handle that experience, nor ever get it, happens to be an authority figure on talking to the world about it.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Talking about Stephen A.
And then why do they choose the narrative that they chose? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was like Stephen A. Smith. I don't mind calling the people out because we were there. And I'd be looking. I'd be like, why is Stephen A. Smith making it like his mission to every day crush this dude? You know what I mean? And it was it just because he wanted to protect Mike and say it's all his fault and he's terrible and he's but it was like, in the media, it's interesting because I never liked the media. It's crazy that I'm now in it, but I never liked the media. And a lot of the reason why I never liked the media was because that's how I saw them do Kwame. That was really a lot. That's really a major point of when I really soured on the media. Like, I saw them. It's one thing to critique somebody's game. They could have rebounded better. They could have ran the floor better. You know what I mean? Their defense was lacking here and here. That's different. But they started criticizing Kwame and attacking him as a man. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't have any. And it was certain people, Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, and certain people that would always do that. And it was like it was an agenda of why they wanted to do that, particularly with Kwame. Now, it was different with other people. You know what I mean? And Stephen A. Smith does this whole Stephen A. Smith thing and all extra dramatic and all extra stuff. But with Kwame, it was like it was personal. And so for Kwame, like you said, for him to stay quiet all this time, now you getting, you know what I mean? It's like the chicken's coming home to roost. Like, this is what, so even though Stephen A. Smith, when he first came out and said it, and Stephen A. Smith was like, I ain't got nothing to do with this. You know what I mean? I'll leave Kwame alone now. Now it's 20 years later. Kwame already got you at the top of the list. So you're going to get this work. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because I've never seen someone get torn down like that in the media who did nothing wrong. I see if somebody did something, got in trouble with the law, got something. Kwame did nothing wrong. He just didn't play up to their level of expectations of how he should play. That was it.
Yeah, and also, too, you got to understand when people like Stephen A., you don't know who he's cool with. So whoever he's cool with may be saying things about Kwame, lying on him, or whatever it is. And so he's listening to the wrong crowd. That's what it is.
And who do you think that probably would be? Michael Jordan. You don't think that Stephen A. Smith talks to Michael Jordan? And I'm sure during all of this, during the time when this was at the forefront of basketball news, where do you think that narrative probably was built from? It was probably built directly from Michael Jordan. Now, I don't know that to be a fact, but that's a pretty good guess, I would think, because a lot of times when you are dealing with a situation like this, where there are questions about why a guy is perceived to not be improving as a player, you look at this, and as somebody like Stephen A. Smith, who wants to weasel their way into being able to use a guy like Michael Jordan as a source without saying his name. Of course, Michael Jordan, knowing what we know now about how he treated Kwame and the perception that he literally was personally trying to crush Kwame's confidence, him and the coach. Why wouldn't that make sense? Why wouldn't that be a possibility that that's something that actually was taking place at the time? Stephen A. Smith shoots a text or calls Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan speaks on it in a way that gives Stephen A. all the ammo and all the opportunity he needs to go out and actually use that narrative in the most outlandish and over-the-top way possible. And like he said, it started to seem like it was personal. And when it gets to that point, it's because he was given the perception that it is personal by somebody else. And there's only one other person that I could think of that there's a real possibility that that's how it played out. And that's with Michael Jordan. Doug Collins, he's still a coach. Coaches aren't going to talk to the media and give the media a personal narrative. Coaches don't do that. But players will. Players will when they're talking in private, when they're talking off the record with people in the media. And again, is it a far reach to think that Stephen A. Smith would not be in regular communications with Michael Jordan at some point about Kwame? And knowing what we know about Jordan and how, unpopular opinion, how selfish he seems to be, how self-centered he seems to be, how much he seems to not give a fuck about anyone else in his sphere except for him. Is it a reach to think that he wouldn't denigrate Kwame's name to Stephen A. Smith, and Stephen A. Smith, seeing that this guy's doing it, the GOAT, he's over here talking down on him like that, so why can't I? And he comes out on national TV, him and Skip Bayless, the show that made them, and they continue to just rip this guy apart, and he's now taking it as his personal mission to make sure everybody in the basketball world knows that Kwame Brown ain't shit. And not only that, I mean, the guy goes on to college campuses and talks about Kwame Brown. That means it's personal. So the dots are connected right there. It's easy to see that the dots are connected. You got to be able to see that to be able to understand why Kwame's doing what he's doing. The dude has sat there and not said a word for decades, and now his reckoning is upon these motherfuckers. And the only person to this point who ain't really been touched by it is Michael Jordan. We'll see if that continues to be the case in the coming days and weeks.
Right.
He won't talk to people like us, because then we gonna tell them a true story, and if we do, then now it's not a story to them. They want the drama. They want to beat you up. That's what they do, bro.
Yes, he wasn't there. In the end of the day, he wasn't there.
True.
If 4 people here actually saw it every day.
Yeah, every day.
How you gonna be the main person talking about it? You ain't there.
And you're not even there. That's real talk.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of people that talking it again that never dribble a ball, never got up in the morning, never went through no stress of this game, never had to learn to adapt to a culture, learn to adapt to people. And these people are the same people that go around talk about they experts, they guru in the sports. And that's the stuff that blows me away. You know,
right. All their information comes from a second party.
Yeah, true.
And whoever the hell that is, you know what I'm saying? My whole point is, you can't be the top authority figure on every topic in sports. If you never there, you're not in the locker room.
or never played. Man, you go to boxing.
It can't play. It can't play.
That's real talk, man.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
all right, so, you know, just a couple of closing thoughts here, and I think it's appropriate to kind of pick this as a good spot to bring the stream to a close. I mean, and this is, you'll hear this from every athlete in any sport. You know, we don't have a problem with our game being critiqued. Nope, I don't think any athlete really feels like it's a slight against them for you to critique their game or to, you know, kind of give your opinion on what aspects of their game you would like to see done, you know, like to see them play better, or you think that they didn't play well in this aspect or that aspect. You know, that's fair game. That's always been fair game. I think where a lot of athletes have problems, and you know, I think to a certain extent it's hard for people to actually get and understand the difference between critiquing and actually insulting a player's game, is that when you have people who are labeled as experts, who are labeled as analysts, and guys who are given legitimacy and given credibility to speak on athletes, whether it be in football, basketball, hockey, baseball, whatever the sport may be, I think that these guys are given far too much credit for something that they generally, not all of them, generally, none of them have any experience in. So for athletes, that becomes an irritating issue. That becomes an annoyance that someone then begins to insult my game as if they know how to do what I do. You're a journalist. I would never step out and critique a journalist and say that their style of writing is improper or not up to the standard that is expected of a journalist in its entirety, in the nuance of their skill, because I can't do that. But you can't do what I do, so respect what I do. Respect what I do, because you can't do it. It's one thing to critique and to give an opinion. It's another thing to try and tear down and insult and make a player feel as if the entire essence of them as an athlete is not legitimate. It's not legitimate. That's why, for me, you know, like with the response that Stephen A. Smith had the other day, it showed me that, you know, for lack of a better way of saying this, he's a bitch. He is a bitch, because you cannot do you can't do what you're not capable of doing what the worst, the least skilled professional basketball player in the world is still worlds better than you. You have no ability in their realm, but you speak and you talk about and you denigrate their abilities as if you do. Now, nobody's saying he doesn't understand basketball. That's what being an expert is. You understand it at a very precise level, but you cannot replicate it. Therefore, there should be a line that you don't cross when speaking and critiquing another man's performance, because you cannot replicate it. I asked a question in my last video. If you gave Stephen A. Smith 12 inches more of height and put him on a basketball court with Kwame Brown, do you think he could dunk on Kwame? No. Do you think he could hit a Euro or a Hezo or anything on Kwame? No, because he doesn't have the ability. He doesn't have it. And hey, there are clips you can look at that will validate that. I watched him miss 10 3-point shots shooting with Harden. I watched him miss them. He's terrible. He can't shoot for shit. I watched him boxing as a workout in his home, and my God, as somebody who actually took up boxing for 2 years after I retired, I boxed with professionals in a professional environment with rings and sparring twice a week for 9 rounds. I did that because I love boxing. I really love boxing. I did that. And when I saw that video of this fucking bum boxing, I was like, you're not an athlete at all. You're not an athlete at all. His movements were stiff. He had literally, like, it was like he had arthritis in every joint. But you ain't an athlete, so how do you have arthritis? His punches were stiff. His punches were fucking just completely, I mean, come on, man. He's terrible. He's terrible. He's not an athlete in any true sense of the form. So again, there's a difference between critiquing and insulting our game. And I think that Stephen A has lost sight of that. I think that as a coach, as a teacher of the game, Michael Jordan does not have the ability to teach the game to players. He is not talented in teaching basketball. He is not talented in coaching, because coaching takes more than just knowing. It takes understanding who your players are. It takes understanding what they respond to. It takes being versatile enough to adjust your style for a player for their benefit. And he didn't give a fuck about none of that. So the skill and the ability to be a true coach and mentor for any player does not exist for Michael Jordan, because it's never about them. It's about Mike, as these guys said. And then finally, Kwame, now in hindsight, with 20 years of him, not really addressing the situation, here we are today, and we see this whole groundswell of people who have literally embraced Kwame Brown and have latched on to what he is saying, because for many people, they felt like there was something off with the way that these sports media types have portrayed players. And there's always been a disconnect between the players and the media, in the sense that players are coached and taught to be very conservative and reserved about how they speak to the media for many reasons, but that creates a little bit of a wall where fans of the sport have to rely on the media to get any kind of perception of what's happening or what the reality is for the players in the locker room. And when people like Stephen A. Smith take advantage of that influence and that power and are seduced by that influence and that power, and that ego becomes as large as the money that he's making every year, there is no consideration of whether or not what he's doing is real or not. There's no consideration of whether or not he is truly being genuine for the betterment not only of his integrity as a journalist, but also for doing the players right. Doing these brothers who come from all different backgrounds, who come from all different struggles, whether it be white, black, or other, are you doing right by them? He don't give a shit about that. It's his image and his brand and the brand of his bosses that he is most concerned for. So now, with him doubling down on that in his response, in his corny ass bullshit response that he put out on TV and made him and truly exposed the straight hoe in him. Now, I think people will get a better understanding of what really goes on behind the scenes, because now players have a way to get their voice out to speak on those matters. And, for former players like myself, we have so much knowledge on those little nuances and those situations that you heard about but but the only thing you could really lean on is what the media talked, how the media portrayed it, how their narrative scoped it. So a lot of people truly thought that Kwame was just a bust, because that is the narrative that's been really set in stone from day one. But now the truth is coming out, and the people who knew the truth, who really didn't have a place to step up and talk about it until Kwame himself came out and talked about it. Now they're coming up and they're validating and backing up everything he says. And again, if you've been paying attention, Kwame told you he knew how they would play it. Once he came out and talked, he knew what the deal was going to be, and they've proven him right in every instance. So now we know there's going to always be a narrative from the media and how they want to portray a certain situation in sports. But if you really want to understand it, if you really want to understand where the true possibilities in that lay, in what they're talking about and what the reality of it is, then there's another way to get that information. And it's by coming to the people who've been there and who done that, the athletes who've been there and done that. Because now we're using these platforms. I've been on YouTube now like a year and like 6 months, year and like 4 months, something like that. Now we're using the platforms, and we're using the platforms really to just talk about our perspective on the live, on the world that we come from, because it's a different world. It really is. It really is a different existence. And, when you retire from the game, you move into a new kind of existence, and you're trying to find your way through it. But honestly, the most comfortable thing for me to do is to come on here and talk about it and talk about that existence, because it doesn't matter how long. I mean, I've been retired for 7 years. It doesn't matter. Football and the dynamics of football, both on the field and in the locker room, are the same. Basketball, the same. Hockey, the same. So guys who've been there, who can speak on it in a more candid way than maybe players who are playing right now, we are just as important as those guys who you see talking about this shit on ESPN. But the difference is, we know what the truth is. We know what the reality of it is, and they speculate and they give their opinion. They're opinionated, and they speculate on what they think reality is. But a lot of times, they blur the lines between what reality is and what's just entertainment. And then in Stephen A's special case, what's really become his defining trait of his entire career has been that denigrating players is good business for him. So to counter that, we here. But with all that being said, man, such an amazing turnout. Appreciate you guys so much. That's going to be the end of this stream here for the observant lineman Uche Nwaneri. I do appreciate you guys so much for being in here and hanging in here with me. I'm over here sweating a little bit. That's just that O-line sweat. We sweat whenever we get excited, get to talking. No, I do appreciate you guys very much for being in here. Make sure you smash that like button. I will be clipping some of this stuff and putting it back up later on today. So make sure you hit that notification bell and keep your eye out for that. But I'm going to stay on top of this, man. I mean, whenever there's any further progress in this story, obviously Kwame is killing it right now. If you go check out his channel, he is absolutely on top of the world right now, which he deserves, because he came out and he spoke the truth to these bums. But I'll be doing the same. I've been doing that since I jumped on here. I'm just trying to give you guys, as honest a view of the world, of the sports world that we come from, as possible. But let me go through a couple of these last super chats. I almost forgot. Let me run through these real quick, and then from there we'll go ahead and shut this thing down. We got a super chat here from Josh from Detroit. $2 super chat. Credit these gentlemen for setting facts straight. I think absolutely right. These guys came out. They validated everything that Kwame's been talking about. They showed us that, it was more to it than any of us could have imagined, really. because, again, it's really just a matter of people and their selfish motives superseding, another young individual's career and just sabotaging his entire identity and his entire existence in the NBA world for their own gain. And that's what it boils down to. Lavery Adam, €5 here. He says, I always felt that Stephen A was out there to try to push people to be the best they can be. Sometimes language betrays the intent of a thought. 100%. Now, to speak on that real quick, Stephen A. Smith does a lot of double talk. Stephen A. Smith does a very good job of trying to catch the wave, whether it's with him or against him. And in this situation, he mistakenly thought that this was going to go well for him because he has built up such a reputation of having a sort of intellectual, I would say, mirage of knowledge and perception. And, and he has a lot of years of being in the industry that really kind of glosses over people's ears and eyes so that they kind of automatically accept his credibility. But I think, the facade of that has been broken. That he's been masquerading, and Kwame has been the one who has broken that. And I think now people are taking a second look at Stephen A. They're taking a second look at him. I mean, it comes to the light no matter what. You can't hide forever. And, he has been doing it so long that hiding has become, the hiding what his actual, the nature of him actually is, has been, something that he's become complacent on. So now that somebody at that very moment of complacency has stepped forward and shattered his entire persona as this knowledgeable character, we see the vindictive, petty, inconsiderate, lame ass that he really has become. And that's really what it is for him at this point. He's fooled a lot of people. That's for sure. We have, Dodger of Zion. What's going on, Dodger? $5 super chat says, I'll be PMing you later, dude. Yeah, for sure. Hit me up on Twitter, because my Discord, sometimes I go days without looking at it. So make sure you hit me up on Twitter. Mexican Iron Man for $10. He says, Uche, you literally should be on Fox or ESPN. You deliver when these TV jokes are full of hot air. Great show today. Thank you very much, Mexican Iron Man. I'm doing this because I like doing it. I don't really have, there's no aim in this for me to get signed to some type of, to a network or anything. Do I think I'm good enough? I think I'm more than good enough. I think I could easily do it. I'm good with the camera. I have no problem speaking, and I have an energy. I feel, I actually enjoy. I enjoy doing this. I like talking, but I'm not the kind of guy who wants to be given a script to read off of. That's hard for me to do. I'm my own man. I have my own way of doing things, and I know what that environment is like, because I've actually been involved in a number of different shows in my businesses that have shown me the other side of things, and it's all scripted. It's all laid out for certain narratives. It really is, but you can choose what you want your narrative to be. And when you're on a platform like this, so I choose to have my narrative be one that's really built on honesty and actual knowledge of that world of sports. So that's how I will continue to do things. But again, appreciate you guys so much for being in here. We're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. That's going to be it for today. If you are new to the channel, I do live streams Monday through Friday from 6 p.m. around 6 p.m. Usually we start around 6:10, 6:15. But make sure you hit that notification bell so you can get notified when I do go live. That'll be Monday through Friday, generally speaking. I will be reacting to a number of different things. It's not always going to be just, most of the times it's football, but any good story, any really good sports story, I try to weigh in or talk about it in whatever way I can. But you guys, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I hope everyone's safe out there on this Memorial weekend. Shout out to all the service members who out there protecting us and helping to keep America safe. Those who have sacrificed in the past, much respect and much love to you. And for everybody who's out there just struggling to make it on an everyday basis and, in life, shout out to you, because it takes a soldier to make it through the day-to-day hardships, especially in the world we find ourselves in today. We're going through the pandemic, going through all these different, changes over the last year that have really affected a lot of people's lives. So definitely much respect to everybody out there who is doing what they got to do to get by. But I will catch you all on Monday. Stay safe. Take care of each other. Love you guys. I'm out.